Hello, everybody. My name is Paulo, and I'm here with my good friend Manny. And I am just going to have a conversation with him. Today, we are starting uh, to share a little bit of his story and the journey of his life. And everything that we're gonna do here is it's all about Jesus. Is for His glory, and we know that there's a lot of people that needs to hear the story and needs to hear what's being what has been happening in the life of Manny, and so I'm just excited about being here. And Manny, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and what is moving you to share this story?
Definitely. Well, I am Manny. This is my story. So I just want to share what the Lord has been doing in my life, even in one of the biggest and most complicated storms that I have lived through. Um, and I believe it needs to be shared. I mean, nothing can argue testimony. And like you said, this is all for the glory of the Lord. I guess it's my story and it's things that had happening, in my life and a little bit of myself that you guys will get to know me a little better, at least for the ones that don't know me yet. And yes, I just asked Pastor Pablo to help me with this project. It's something that I couldn't do by myself. And I really, really thank you and appreciate that you're doing this with me.
Oh no, I'm honored, and honestly, I admire your courage to share the story because there's a lot of things that has happened, and sometimes when we go through a storm or we go through a challenge, we think that we are the only ones who are going through that, and we see the storm raging around us, and we sometimes feel isolated and we don't know what to do or why we don't know what's the next step. And that's why I love about what we are doing right now. It's because I know that there are many people who are going through the same storm that you went through, and they are in the midst of it right now. And that's our prayer, that people will find hope, will find encouragement, and it will find purpose through the storm.
Definitely. It's something very important for me that when people come and talk to me about it and ask, just the few people that know at the moment, um, this is the closest I have ever felt to God. Um, it just takes for us as believers and followers of Jesus Christ, it takes time to realize that He is the focus. And when we focus in Him, that when we put all these storm and forget about the storm and just focus, you'll feel Him. I have never in my Christian life have felt this close to the Lord, and it's part of the surrendering. When we surrender to Him, He is close to the brokenhearted. It's a promise from Him that He tells in His Word, and He fulfill every promises. He just don't say that in the Word for us to feel better. He is close. Um, and this time in my life, I mean, yes, it's been painful and very challenging, but my joy it's there. I mean, the joy of the Lord is my strength, and definitely there's nothing I will allow to take that away from me.
Absolutely. And just a little sneak peek for all the people who is listening and perhaps even watching the videos. It's that the story of Manny, it's the story of a normal guy, just a normal human being, a normal person, but then needs to face a few challenges. I mean, the loss of a loved one. He needs to go through a lot of changes in life, and there's a lot of things that we need to navigate, and we will go into that later in the podcast. But right now, I want to just give you that sneak peek because there's a lot of depth that is gonna happen in this story. So to start today, why don't you tell us, Manny, a little bit about you, who you are right now? I mean, where you are, because we are sitting here across this, and people are watching the video, and they see your smile, and they see you here. So who is Manny today?
So Manny today is a broken man, a sinner that being washed by the blood of Jesus Christ. In 2015 is when I gave my life to Christ. I still feel like a Christian baby. It's a learning process as we go. But I wouldn't change that for anything in the world. The Lord is my shepherd. He's been with me through the goods and bads. And he has shown in the bads more than any other thing in my life. But yes, moved here to Missouri, to Branson, Missouri, last year on 2022. Found my home church. The Lord just guided me to this place. I mean, the story about that is hilarious. But yeah, he just led me here, and thankfully that I'll get to do this and share this with you.
Yeah, and for all of you that maybe don't know him personally, the person that you're listening and the way he expressed, that's Manny. I mean, it's real, and it's just a hint of we are lost and we need Jesus, loving Jesus with all his heart, but at the same time, is that hint of courage and also a desire, a deep desire to to make Jesus famous. One of the things we love here is every time we see Manny coming into the church parking lot with his bike, and you would not recognize him if you see him with his vest, because you are part of a motorcycle ministry too, right?
Correct. Bikers for Christ. It's been a long journey to get to it. And finally, this year, I was patched and became an official member. And it's amazing. That ministry is just opening so many doors. Um, that we get to pray and bring the gospel to people
Yeah.
that doesn't know. It's challenging and it could be scary at times, but again, I mean, the Lord is my shepherd, and I just let Him speak because when I do by myself, I usually make mistakes.
Yeah, so you guys are having a little bit of a glimpse of who Manny is today, but the person who Manny is today is the product, is the result of a process that started when you were a child, and then you have seen God moving in every stage in different moments, and that's who we are today. Because sometimes we just see the joy of the person, or we just see the person that is living a life of victory in Jesus, but we don't see the whole process that took us there to really enjoy that victory.
Definitely. And like I was saying earlier, there's it's just surrendering. It's the only way. When we get out of the way, it's is when God can do his work. And I use this analogy a lot. When I was a kid, my dad did most of the remodeling in the house, and I wanted to help, but I wasn't old enough or big enough to be able to carry all the things that he needed it. But he will tell me, no, you cannot do it. But he will tell me, sit here, so he will grab a chair or whatever so I could sit and see what he was doing. So this is the way you can help me right now. You're learning and you're seeing what's going on, and that way he keep doing whatever needed to be done, and I was still with him watching what he was doing. It's basically about the same with the Lord. You just need to surrender everything you have to him. It's not an easy process,
Mhm.
but and it takes time. But you just surrender to him and let the Lord do what he does, so we don't mess up. So we can allow him to work in our lives, and that's where the transformation of ourselves comes into place.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now that you mentioned that story when you were a kid, why don't start there and share us a little bit of how was your childhood? Because I mean, I know everybody that is listening and perhaps watching. I'm not a English speaking native person. English is my second language. That's why I have this charming accent. And you will may not notice, but Manny is I don't know if you consider English to be your first language or Spanish your first language.
I will say Spanish is my first language. I'm very comfortable with English. Um, but I am, Spanish is my first language. I had to learn English later in the process. When I was living in Puerto Rico and became a teenager, I said, no, I need to learn English one way or the other. And that story can come up at some point
Yeah.
through this podcast.
Yeah, you see, when I grew up, I want to speak English like Manny. That he speaks so good. So let's start there. Let's tell us a little bit about your childhood. How was it that you grew up?
So my childhood, I grew up in Puerto Rico. Guaynabo is the city where I grow, and I was raised. It's about 20. It's a metro area. It's about 20 minutes without traffic from San Juan, and I had a great childhood. I cannot complain. My parents were great. They provided everything we needed it. It was four of us. It was me and three more siblings, and it was great. And we were a close family. Things started changing after that. That probably want to talk about it later. But I had a great childhood. We were a close family. You know, my parents always provided and did the best they could with us.
Yeah, and I know personally Manny's mom, and I am a witness that she is an amazing lady. She's the sweetest lady that you can have a conversation with. So that's how you grew up, and it was a good family. It was healthy. You had great parents and siblings. And how was your relationship with God in those years?
My relationship with the Lord there was no relationship. I grew up in the Catholic Church, um, and we did go out on Sundays, but it was at some point it was more like most people go to church in special dates,
Hmm.
Christmas or anything like that. Now my parents grow. They had to work. They both had to work, and my dad at some point was working and going to college at the same time, so he wasn't at the house much. And my mom will be the one taking care of everything, going to
Hmm.
work and coming back home and have dinner ready and then go to school again because for a time she was doing school part time.
Yeah.
So, but me personally, I did not have a relationship with Jesus Christ the way I do now.
And so how that happened? What happened when you became a teenager? At what point did you started to seeing the need of God in your life?
So that was when I was 13. The sister before me, Blanca, she passed away. The family kind of broke up at that point. My brother was still in the house. My sister was married back then. So it was the three of us. But then at that point, my parents, I mean, it was devastating for the whole family, but especially for my parents. I mean, your child just passed away. So they grieve. And me as a teenager, 13-year-old, I mean, I didn't know what to do. I will see my dad like really weeping in his office. He had an office in the house. And my mom, I mean, she got pretty bad. I mean, my mom got depressed. She had the hardest time in her life, probably at that time, and I'm pretty sure that's accurate. So I just went to the streets at 13 and started doing whatever the world had to offer. And at some point, I met someone that used to go to a church that was not Catholic,
Mhm.
and they invited me to the church, and that's when I have my first exposure to something different than Catholicism. And at that point, I did had started the process, but something happened at that church, and that I got kicked out. And it was not necessarily kicked out, but they removed me from the choir or the band or from the plays that we would do. We used to do plays all over the island to other churches. So, but the one weekend they had these youth weekend event at the church, and part of it was all the groups get together and then you tell your testimony.
Mhm.
But then at this point, this is now a few years after my sister had passed away. I did all my fair amount of stuff on the streets. So I told what they asked me to, and after that, I guess they didn't like it. It was too intimidating.
Your testimony was too rough for
E-
the other youth.
Correct. So they said, no, these kids cannot hang out with this guy because I mean, this is crazy stuff. And that's when I became bitter. Is not the word I want to use because it's worse than that. But I became bitter against God. I mean, this is what you're preaching. Like this is where you showing a 13. I was 15, 16 by then. Um, but this is what you teach in a teenager. But if you don't like it, just get rid of it. I said, I want nothing to do with your God. Like this is not acceptable. I mean, it's you preach one thing but do a different one, and that's when everything got rough.
Yeah, and just to make sure that everybody, I mean, we all understood correct, that you did some things that were wrong, and then you came to Christ, and your life turned around, and then later years after, you were asked to share your testimony, and you shared all some of those things that you did and how God rescued you from there because it was dark and how he came and the light shine on you and God saved you. But in the ears of the church, in the ears of the people, all what they heard was the dark. They did not grasp the miracle of salvation that happened in your life. And because of that, they remove you from all the positions and any serving opportunities that you were. What do you think the church in that position should have done differently?
I mean, once they hear a story like that, I think that they should care about that with love. I mean, so you know, what things can we be doing to keep you away from other things? And to give a little context, one I took the road the way I call it when my sister passed away. I started hanging out with the wrong guys. We started stealing. We started dealing with drugs in some ways. I mean, we I did a lot of for a 13, 14-year-old kid. It was kind of crazy. And I understand how someone can be intimidated, but I think that that's the time when you should have a mentor and try to guide you and see how, you know, help with the process that the Lord will do when somebody accept, whether you're 15 or 80. Um, is a process that, you know, someone don't accept Christ and next morning when you wake up you are completely different. It takes time.
Mm.
It's a process. Every relationship takes time, and you need to care for the relationship. And so I think that a church in a situation like that, instead of being intimidated, yeah, you want to be careful, but instead of being intimidated by it and keep, you know, take you away from it, I think it should have been more. Okay, so what else you want to do? What things? And if I don't know it, just teach them. I mean, it's a critical age. Teenage, it's not easy. And I think that's the approach me personally would do now. Okay, so how can I mentor this teenager to try to help them, you know, learn the faith, how the walk with Christ looks like, and then try to find things that they, you know, abilities or talents they may have that will encourage them to keep following and pursuing Jesus.
Yeah, and if we are all honest, if we all shared our testimony and all the things that we did before Christ, I mean, most of us would be kicked out of the churches if we live like that.
Right.
Now, what would you say? And this is something that a question that is just coming into my mind. What would you say to a teenage person, a girl or a boy, that right now they are in church and perhaps they feel misunderstood and perhaps they feel that the church is pushing them away from God? What would you say to those teenagers? What would you done differently in your life?
Uh, I will definitely say speak up. Look for help. I know that when we were teenagers, I remember when I was a teenager, I thought I was the king of the world. I knew it all, you know. But speak up, talk to somebody, so you can learn how that relationship with Jesus Christ can grow. Because on your own, y- there's not much you can do. So it is important to find that one person that can teach you how to pray, that can pray for you and show you the way how to read the Bible, and then apply these for different talents that they may have. Get involved with the church, with other teenagers at the church, that can help you understand and get your walk with Christ started the proper way.
Yeah, and I think it's so important, that part. It's to speak up, speak to somebody, because sometimes that kind of attitudes don't come from the whole body of the church. It's usually one or two persons,
Mhm.
and just finding the right person to talk to, one of the elders of the church, church leadership. That's
Exactly.
that's the key, because as a church, we need to walk with the person, not to push them away or feel them or make them feel like they are unwanted. Um, so after that episode, and you were pushed back to the streets, what happened next?
After that live, oh my goodness, everything just turned. Everything just turned into just hell. Just
It got complicated.
it got way complicated. I mean, many things happened when I hit 18. I already at that point started having suicidal thoughts. I have attempted multiple times, and but as of today, I can say it wasn't God's plan yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the times I attempted suicide with so many pills, and somehow I woke up in my bed the next morning, and I'm like, I don't understand all these things. I can understand today,
Mm-hmm.
but back then I had no idea. Yes, life became complicated just because of my doings. Um, one of the things is that I just started hating Christians. I will see somebody with Christian anything on the Bible, and I will crush their souls in any way I could. Inclusively, I became a police officer later in my life, and I will see cars that have any sticker Christian related. I will find an excuse to stop them. And back then, I'm a police officer. I'll stop you, and I will say things that I am. If I think about it today, I'll be ashamed to repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's, I mean, life like got complicated.
Yeah, and just to give a little bit context there, when Manny says that he would, I mean, recognize Christians walking with the Bible, for especially the younger generation, back in the day before smart devices, smartphones, everybody walked with the Bible to the church. I mean, it's not like now everybody just have their Bible in their
I use the app,
device.
yeah.
So you really don't recognize now, but back in the then, that was something. It was an easy way to recognize the Christians, because they were walking with their Bibles, and I cannot imagine that poor person just walking down the street or just driving their car with one of those little stickers of a fish, and then running into a beater version of Manny. Bizarro Manny, if you want to put it like that, and just going off for I mean, basically for being a Christian.
Definitely. I mean, it was more like a pole kind of thing. I mean, I wouldn't physically hurt anybody.
No.
I really did not went that far, but sometimes I think that emotional damage is worse than if I slap someone in the face. I mean, when you emotionally affect somebody, some people live with that forever. I mean, I remember one episode. Oh my goodness. Um, so I was a motorcycle police officer doing all my rounds, all my stuff, and then out of nowhere, right in front of me, it's not that I'm 10 cars behind or 3 cars. I'm right behind this pickup truck. I will never forget. It was a Toyota pickup truck, red with white letters on it. He ran the red light right in front of me, and I'm like, "You got to be kidding me!" Like for real. So sometimes I will stop people. And once I come to the car, hey, license and registration, please, and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If they were just go with it and calm down and do what I'm saying, I would just tell him, hey, this is what happened. I stopped you because of this. I hope you don't do this again. And then we'll, okay,
Mm-hmm.
just go away. That not everything needs to be a ticket.
Yeah.
Now, if they will have an attitude, you're gonna sit here for a while. I mean, so now when I get to the car, he's with a child in the car, no seatbelt. He had no seatbelt and he had a Bible on the dash.
Oh,
And I went off this old man. I mean, off. The kids started crying. I started yelling. And because then the first thing he said, "Oh, please, in the name of Jesus, give me a chance." That was it.
it was the right word.
He brought Jesus into the conversation, and I took Jesus out of the conversation in a heartbeat. I gave him as many tickets as I could. I yelled at this old man like so disrespectful. That's what I became, and so I just got bitter because this is the people when I was younger that kicked me out instead of giving me a hand and do what they're preaching. Whether they was from the same church or not, but that was not the point. The point is that I just put all Christians into the same box. I mean, and I wish I could say I'm sorry for this person this day, but it's things that happen. That's why it's so important for us believers, adult believers. I see church like a tribe. It's just like a tribe. I mean, all of us are supposed to be caring for the younger ones.
Yes.
This is not just a mom and dad thing. Yes, they're responsible at the home. They are the head of the house and they do the things they have to do. But us as a church, we need to help with these kids
Yeah.
in any way we can. And that's basically what I thought they should have done back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so maybe the gentleman, the owner of that Toyota red truck, I don't know if he will be listening, or maybe the kid that was with him, and you remember maybe you were driving with grandpa, and this police officer came off. Now you understand the reason of the story, a little bit of the background,
Yes.
and I hope that when you hear this, you understand that this is an apology from
Yes.
many years later, and if that's you, make sure to send us a message and let us know and let Manny know that you forgive him.
Please.
Ay. And so all that bitterness just started to just grow, and it's like a pressure cooker that keeps building and building and
Oh,
building.
yes. Oh, yes. I mean, and he's unstoppable. The only way to stop that is getting Jesus in your life
Mm.
because it is exactly what you're saying. It just, and every time it was worse, and I was more encouraged. And it's like the first situation just taught me how to take care of the next one. And this was for years. So we're talking about what, 20 now, 19. I was 15. I was 22 when I became a police officer. I was what, in my 30s, 20s. I mean, until 2015 when I met Christ.
Wow. Wow. And we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Don't
Yes.
worry. Don't worry. You are listening. We will get there because Manny goes through an amazing transformation. To me, to hear this other Manny, I'm glad I didn't get to know that Manny. I'm so happy that I'm sitting with this Manny now.
I don't think you would have liked me.
Yeah, no, probably not. And you wouldn't like me either. I mean, you would just look at the eye and probably you would make me cry. I don't know. I don't know. But that was your life in Puerto Rico. And after that,
2006 is when I moved to Pennsylvania and just started doing my life there. I always wanted to come to the States one way or the other. It's like I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, but even as a kid, I felt like I was in the wrong place. I don't know what was about it. So I always wanted. Someday I'm going to live in Puerto Rico. I joined the army to try that way. I did different things until finally in 2006, I ended up with my cousin and aunt in Pennsylvania.
we're in Pennsylvania there.
Pennsylvania, it was called Wallingford. It's about half hour from Philly.
Okay. So do you like the Philadelphia Eagles or the Phillies or
I love the Chiefs,
the Kansas City Chiefs?
Kansas City Chiefs.
All the people listening in Pennsylvania, I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know if you start liking them when you moved to Missouri or you liked them before. We did not try to convert anybody into the Kansas City Chiefs, but now it's easy with Mahomes, I guess.
I guess, yeah. I mean, and it was last year when I made that change. I said, well, if everything changes, I used to be a Steelers fan.
Okay.
But when I moved, it's interesting because when I was a kid, I used to play baseball. That was my breakfast, lunch, and dinner all day. Like if somebody won't go get me, I won't even eat.
Hmm.
That was my life. Mainly, it was baseball or any kind of sport, volleyball, whatever. And I used to have a Cardinals jersey. And back then, the Cardinals were that was my team. Like
Yeah.
baseball, I will sleep with that. I will play with that. I always had it. So last year, when we moved to Pennsylvania, to here to Branson, I'm watching the game and I remember this story, and I'm like, that used to be my team. So I said, you know what? Let's just, since everything is new and God is changing a lot of things, let's change the teams too. And I guess I gave him good luck. They won last year, the Chiefs.
Yeah, the Chiefs did. Chiefs are doing really good. I think you are their lucky charm. If we don't necessarily believe in that, but I
Oh,
guess we
yeah.
could. So you ended up in Pennsylvania, and at this point, you are bitter with the church. You have been a police officer. You have been in the army already,
Hmm.
and then you land in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So, Pennsylvania, I work um, at Walgreens for about 10 years. And I started in Wallingford, and then I end up opening the store in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which I lived there for 15, 16 years before I moved here to Branson. Um, and yeah, in Lancaster, opened the store. I got promoted at the store as an assistant manager there. And like I said, it's almost about, I would say 9 years, 9 to 10 years um, that I work at that store for a while.
Oh, and what happened in that period of your life? Where were you? Were you still as bitter against the church as you were before? What was happening in those years?
So I was still bitter as bad as I could against the church, definitely. As a person, I mean, I wasn't. I just want to clarify that it's I wasn't mean all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I always had that feeling in my heart of trying to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
It was just church.
Yeah.
It was just anything God related is what will trigger, all this hate and bitterness, and I just will become, I mean, something I did not like.
Mm-hmm.
But I always, I will be the one. Oh, somebody having trouble on the street, and if I can, if I was by myself and not with my kids, I will try to help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but that's not necessarily what's important. That's not what defines us. Now that I know Christ and I have Christ in my life, and then at that point is when I went to school. I was working the night shift
Mm-hmm.
for all this time. Out of the 9, 10 years, I think I worked nights for about at least 6 years. I liked it because the schedule was really nice. Um, but it's and these all these stories that come out of these are like the God was finding or attempting ways to guide me to where I am today,
Mm-hmm.
and He was successful. It was an older lady that I had no idea who she was. She was not one of these customers that come every week. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. And my employee at the time, we were what we call facing when we put the store and we make the store look pretty. And we just having a conversation. We will go on the same aisle. I do one side, she would do the other one, and just having whatever conversation we came up.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, she asked me, "So why you been single all this time? Like, why you don't have someone in your life?" Because once I separate from my youngest son mother,
Mm-hmm.
I was single for I would say 10 years, if not more. So I told her, I don't know. I guess the right person haven't come to my life. So at this time, I hear steps coming in because the lady was few aisles
Mm-hmm.
down from us, and she just stood up. I remember she stood up at the end of the aisle, and she said, "His future wife, he'll know who she is because she will call him a different name, and she will bring him flowers."
She will call him a different name and she will bring you flowers.
Correct.
You will not bring flowers to her. She will bring flowers to
To
you.
me. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, thank you. Like not in a disrespectful way. It
Yeah.
was, oh, thank you. Like,
Yeah.
all right. And then like my employee and I look at each other. I'm like, all right, I guess that's who's gonna be.
Mm-hmm. So you were working night shifts and you went back to school, and it was in that season of your life. You think there was any moment when somebody from church or family reach out to you and share a little bit of the gospel, and in a way that actually touched you, in a way that did not trigger that anger?
So yes, Victor. I will never forget his name, and I had the blessing because I remember talking to Amy Joe about him. I said, "Oh my gosh, I wish I could see Victor because he was the only one Christian I could not break in.
Mm.
He was a younger guy. Believe it, he will go to church, every Sunday. Like his family was very active at church, and I think it was a Pentecostal church. Um, he was always at it. He wouldn't push it because he knew my stand, where I stand about it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the first conversations, they were brutal. And this kid will cry. This kid he just will go home. I mean, I will crush this kid like there's no tomorrow. But he insisted. He kept just going and talking about it. And every once in a while, he will say something and these little pieces here and there to the point that I end up going to his church once.
Oh, that's almost a miracle.
Yes.
What is the age gap between you and Victor?
Ah,
It was about the same age, or?
no, no. Victor has to be at least 10 years younger or something like that. Like he was young.
And
Like he was young.
how he managed to get Manny from that season to go to church?
I guess the Holy Spirit did it for him. He just started finding the things that I like. I like baseball and softball, so we end up playing softball together and with people from the church. So the one day I was feeling bad for him. I'm like, oh my God, this kid is trying so bad, and I'm like, oh, let me just go one day and he'll be happy and whatever. And that's what I did. The one Sunday, I was bored. Now, all this time that I'm talking about, especially when I was working overnight and all that, I was
Mm-hmm.
suicidal every night.
Mm-hmm.
Every single night, I will find a way to do it, and it wouldn't work. I was depressed. I was all of the above. Um, until I said, well, maybe I meet people here, whatever, and so I went that one night, but then again, it just didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Things were happening that at that point, with everything I had and all the bitterness that I have, I'm like, let's stop this show now.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed the whole service, but then I left, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Never went back.
What would you say to relatives, parents, for example, that have a kid? It's what they call a prodigal son or a daughter, and they are bitter against the church. What would you say to them? What is the best way to talk to them?
I think it's just have a clear, open conversation. Um, More than anything, I would say listen to them, because that way you can find the root of the issue. Because to be honest, it's just ignorance. We become like this because we don't know, and we are mad, and we were hurt, and when we get hurt, our instinct is just to hurt back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just important to our kids these days is just talk to them, find a way to to gain that trust that they can come and talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes, I mean, that's one of the problems in the house. If at the house, yes, you need to call what's right or wrong. As a parent, you
Mm-hmm.
you have to. I mean, you have to teach them this is this and this. I mean, the Bible teaches what is a sin and what is not.
Yeah.
So that is important, but I think it just need to be done in a way that you win their trust, and then after that, just let them speak up,
Mm-hmm.
because listening to them is the only way you can help them.
Mm. I love that because many times we take the opposite route and we
Mm-hmm.
are the ones to
Mm-hmm.
talk all the time and we want
Mm-hmm.
them to listen.
Mm-hmm.
But it's powerful when we actually take the time to listen to them and see
And the
where they are.
example, when they see it that you're doing what you're preaching,
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, this is what my dad does. Let me just then try to walk the same steps. I mean,
Hmm.
again, you cannot say don't do this and then it's okay for me to do it, but you cannot.
Hmm.
I mean, when you're talking about a child, teenager, I mean, you need to do what you preach.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are in Pennsylvania. You're working night shifts. You have been in church very, very, very rare occasions. I imagine maybe a wedding or something like that. And Victor made you to go
Yes.
once to church. And now you're back to school. What happens after that?
So in school, I was able to go to school. So again, right now I call it a blessing.
Hmm.
Back then it was like I don't know what's going on. I ended up going to school. So I had another lady come into the store and heard me complaining. I was complaining to my employee. I hate this job. Like I can. Why am I doing this all my life? I'm getting old and blah blah blah. And again, this lady, which is not a lady, it's not a common customer,
Hmm.
couple aisles down, and she comes in. She said, "Why don't you go to school?" And I'm like, "Go to school? How am I supposed to pay for that? I mean, I'm barely making it with working here like 48 hours a week. Like
Hmm.
I can do that." And she said, "There's student loans. They help you do that. If you go to school, they teach you how to do that." And I'm like, oh, thank you again.
Yeah.
So, that day happened. Days keep going by, and I'm working with one of my employees. It's on as usual. There's only me and one employee, and I got hurt. My shoulder popped, a box fell, and it was crazy. I had 3 surgeries in my shoulder because of it. And at that time, I was having a lot of health issues back then,
Hmm.
especially respiratory issues. I was in ICU a couple of times. I mean, it was ugly. And so the one time I'm in the hospital, and my doctor came after a biopsy that he has done on my thyroid and told me, "Hey, you have thyroid cancer." And I'm like, "Oh shoot! Well, what are we supposed to do now?" So
Yeah.
he explained what we're supposed to do. I had surgery. They removed my thyroid and all that kind of stuff. Later, like a few months later, I end up in the hospital again with breathing issues. And at that time, when I'm in the hospital, I'm sitting there. I said, I need to change. Something needs to
Hmm.
change. I mean, I cannot be on retail the rest of my life. And I'm not saying anything wrong about retail. People that love working retail, hey, bless your heart.
Yeah.
Thank you for your hard work that we can go in and grab the stuff we need and make the store look pretty. But I wasn't getting it. I said, this is not
Hmm.
what I'm here for. How do I help people better than this? So I remember in the hospital, I'm talking to one of the nurses, and I'm like, and how is it to be a nurse? And I started asking a whole bunch of questions and all that kind of stuff. So when they discharged me from the hospital, that same day, I only have I have $75 in my bank account. And from the hospital, I still had all the bands from the hospital, all the everything. Like I just got out, I went straight to school, and I told him, "How do I need to do to become a medical assistant? Like, how do I do this?"
Hmm.
They gave me an orientation. They started, "No, but you used to be a police officer. You should go to criminal justice. I want to be a nurse. I want to be a medical assistant or whatever. I want to be in the medical field."
Hmm.
So she said, "Well, they gave me a tour of the school, the whole stuff." And she's like, "You doing okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm doing," because she saw all the stuff that I have. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing well. I just really need to do this. My life needs to change." So she showed me around. She said what I had to do. I had to pay $50 for the fee that they charge to start the process. I got accepted, and I ended up doing school, which it helped that I got hurt because being on workers' compensation, I was able to go to school during the day.
Okay.
So I mean, it was just a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going back a little bit to that to when you went to the school, just with all the stuff still hanging. probably bruises in your
Oh
arms,
yeah.
and because I've been there with you when you walk out of the hospital, you look rough,
I
and
was there for about 2 weeks that time.
so it was, yeah, it was even harder,
Yes.
and that you started school, and that starts, it's like a domino effect
Hmm.
that is going to change your life. He's going you, that's what one of those things, and those two ladies that God has used
Hmm.
so far to speak out of the blue in your
Yes.
work, to start bring that confirmation. But it's that domino effect that it's starting, and your
Yes.
life is about to go through an amazing transformation that is gonna get you out of the place of bitterness and a place of rejection and depression into finding the light. And that's what gets us excited, and that's what we will talk in the next episode. I want to thank you again, Manny, for sharing this story, and I hope everybody, and I think everybody is enjoying it as much as I am enjoying it, because what I love, one more time, is that it's a normal person, it's a normal human being sharing your story,
Yes.
and through this, I know many others are listening and they are seeing themselves in this because they are there with you.
Definitely. Yes. And I do appreciate you doing this for me. I mean, no one could have been any better.
Well, I just add the Hispanic charming accent to the mix.
Well, there's two Hispanic accents here.
Yeah, well, you don't have one out of almost.
Oh, I do. I do. Trust me.
I don't hear it. Maybe if you are if you are English speaking person your whole life, you will maybe pick up.
Yeah.
But well, that will be all for today.
Yes.
God bless you all, and we will continue this story. So have a wonderful time, everybody.
Thank you for watching or listening if you're listening, and you have a blessed one. We'll see you next time.